Representative Vice President, we come to our third round, and the first speaker for the EPP on my list is Paulo Rangel. We're calling Portugal. Go ahead.
Thank you. My dear Josep Borrell, High Representative, I would like to ask you that besides we should trust in your word and even in your surprise, as you have just pointed out, in your surprise on this issue, I must say that there are facts that show that something happened between the first and the second report. You say that it is internal. It is internal indeed. But that means that it is truth. And the issue is, why isn't this not assumed in a very open way by the External Action Service? Why? Because if you say that is the same thing, why didn't the service reproduce it in the second report, what was stated in the first report? Because this really seems that there was some pressure from the outside, and I think that would be unacceptable for the European Union and especially for the European External Service.
Thank you, Paulo Rangel. And now for the S&D Group, Kati Piri. We're calling the Netherlands. Kati, we can see you, but we can't hear you.
Remove your headset, please. Disconnect them. Speak a little bit. I'm going to refresh your page. In the meantime, maybe we can pass to the next one and come back to you after.
Kati, we'll try and come back to you. We can't hear you in the moment. In the meantime, we go to the Renew Group, Meneer Groothuis. Bart Groothuis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Borrell. And thank you for being here in the European Parliament, Mr. Borrell. I agree with Mr. Sikorski that you are an honourable man, and as the initiator of the letter that's being sent to you, co-signed by 58 other MEPs, I'd very much like to thank you for coming here. And I'd like to also say what is at stake and what is not at stake. And what is not at stake is that you have a certain freedom of movement, a manoeuvre space in the diplomatic sphere, like Ms. Loiseau said very clearly. It's clearly stated in Article 21 of the Lisbon Treaty, and I expect you hold it. So what is not at stake is did one or two or three words change our posture on China. I also agree with what you said on there. You have a good track record. And what is not at stake is the good and hard work from the people from the EEAS. But what is at stake here is our sovereignty. So what the rise of China and the pressure that entails means for the European Union is dependent on our reactions to that. Our reactions are what matter. So if it concerns disinformation campaigns, we must react by imposing costs to any regime trying to do so, not denying or ignoring it. And I agree with what Mr. Butikofer said. You should be lashing out at journalists. We should be acknowledge that there was pressure, like you just did, but we didn't water down. If we did that publicly, we would have responded and placing the EU matters in the right context. So we ask you to apply Article 21 of the Lisbon Treaty, which states we should uphold and defend our values in any interaction with non-EU states. But that also means the cat and mouse game concerning disinformation.
Time.
So do you agree with us that the response in the future should be we should always respond to any disinformation campaign by imposing costs? We should strategically seek to attribute who is behind it, and we should seek sanctions in order to control this situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Val. For the Green Group, I have the request to speak now. No, first we go back to Kati Piri. Kati Piri, S&D, second try. Kati, we can see you. I can see you, but I can't hear you. What can we do? We'll continue to try and get a connection. In the meantime, for the Greens, Mr. Lagodinsky. I have a phone number. Sergey. Lagodinsky.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, David. Can you hear me? Mr. Borrell, thanks so much for being here, and belated congratulations to your anniversary, now that we know. 3 points. 1 point, there was a letter that we have launched with 39 members of the parliament end of March. It was about information campaigns by Russia and China. And that brings us to an important point. When we talk about disinformation alone, that is too narrow. So the question is, in how much is it possible to strengthen the very good work of Stratcom by by looking at broader soft power manipulation that we're witnessing in situations like this? It's not just about disinformation; it's about broader informational campaigns. What is your take on that? Number 2, in how far do you discuss these issues with other members during your meetings? Because member states, some of them, are very much part of the game. And if they are playing the game of Russia, China, or others, then it is very difficult to tackle it. What about the Italian government responses to that? What about Hungarian or other countries who play the game along with them? Do you discuss these issues with them? And the final question, we would like to see the work of Stratcom going and being strengthened. In how far are you planning to put more resources into the work of it? Maybe also launching a Stratcom going directly and dealing directly with China. Are there plans in that direction? We support the work of this unit very much, and we expect you to strengthen it also in the direction of working with China specifically.
Thank you. The interpreters will leave us in 1 minute. They were so kind to stay 50 minutes longer. So the final speaker who can still get interpretation is, 5 minutes we have. But anyway, the next speaker is Mr. Terch, Hermann Terch for the ECR. We're calling Madrid. Madrid.
Do you see me?
We can hear you.
Here, at least.
We can hear you. We can't see you.
Thank you very much. En español voy a hablar. Muchas gracias, señor Borrell, por estar aquí, por haber venido tan urgentemente, porque creo que es un asunto muy serio. En realidad, usted nos ha confirmado las presiones de China y la reacción nos preocupa y, desde luego, el daño está hecho. Creo que lo importante en este momento es que hagamos una revisión general de lo que es la política al respecto con China, a la vista de la actitud de China en este momento, en esta cuestión que estamos viendo, que no está modificándose, sino que se está agravando en el peor sentido. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Hermann Terch. And now the third try to get Kati Piri on board.
Hello.
Yes. Hello, Kati. Welcome.
Okay. Now on an iPad. Thank you, Chair, and thank you also, Josep, for giving us the clarifications. And I think what is most important today is to hear your very clear remark that there have been no watering down of the report. And we also understand, of course, as a diplomatic service, as you raised it yourself, there is also some information for internal use. But that does, of course, leave open the question whether, when dealing with this sensitive information on disinformation practices happening in Europe, whether we should also not think about an independent institution where there are not 27 member states also looking at reports, where we know they have different opinions on China. Would that be, what is your opinion on that? and very specifically on what's in the report now, because I think the conclusions are tough and hard. Do you also see a clear increase of this disinformation by the Chinese government compared to, for instance, 6 months ago? And finally, what's your reaction to it? What is the follow-up of these conclusions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. And to finalize, Milan Sver. Milan Sver, EPP, with a Z. Yeah? Now that's a bookshelf. Milan, can you turn your camera? We're seeing your wonderful bookshelf. Well, he's not there. Then for the EPP, is Miriam Lexman on board? Okay, no. Lexman? She's... Okay, we're waiting. Shall I give the floor to somebody else in the meantime? Perhaps better. Okay, then the next for the S&D would be Sánchez Amor.
Gracias, presidente. De rebote. Gracias por su disponibilidad, señor Borrell. Este tipo de políticas lo que intentan es crear incertidumbre y generar dudas sobre nuestras instituciones. Ese es uno de los objetivos. Y, por tanto, todo el mundo tendría que plantearse si, al introducir estas dudas sobre el funcionamiento del servicio exterior, no estamos precisamente contribuyendo a esa agenda política que pretende el descrédito de nuestras instituciones europeas y, por tanto, siendo agentes, aunque sea inconscientes, precisamente de esas agendas. Yo creo que transparencia toda, pero ingenuidad ninguna. Y yo creo que sería una ingenuidad culpable estar contribuyendo a erosionar los instrumentos que nos estamos dando precisamente para luchar contra estas desinformaciones y esta política. Porque el objetivo es el de dibujar la idea de que las sociedades iliberales autoritarias han sido más efectivas contra la pandemia y que las democracias no saben gestionar este tipo de crisis. Y detrás de esa narrativa lo que aparece es una justificación implícita de que en este tipo de situaciones el sacrificio de los derechos de los ciudadanos está plenamente justificado. Frente a esa efectividad autoritaria, Europa pone la responsabilidad individual de unos ciudadanos que han sabido siempre, también en estas situaciones, preservar sus derechos. Gracias, señor Borrell.
Right, thank you. Should we try and get somebody from the EPP? Miriam Lexman. We're calling Bratislava.
Thank you very much. Mr. Borrell, thank you for taking the time to discuss this important issue. The allegations of Chinese coercion and pressure on the EU with regards to the East Stratcom reports is truly worrying. But I believe that there are two ways we can safeguard ourselves against the influence of authoritarian regimes. Firstly, I'm a strong supporter of the need to fight against disinformation of any kind. East Stratcom is an important part of that, but we need to ensure a high-quality analysis backed by a solid methodology. I believe that a methodologically and analytically robust institution, coupled with a more effective external communication, is a fundamental starting point in strengthening our fight against disinformation. Secondly, we must rethink our broader relations with China. The CCP has built an Orwellian state brutally violating the rights and freedoms of its citizens. It is renegating on international agreements and behaves with increasing brute force towards the people of Hong Kong and constantly bullies Taiwan. Moreover, Cardinal Bo rightly argues that it is the oppression, the lies and the coercion and the corruption of the CCP that are responsible for the pandemics. This opens a fundamental question about how Western democracies ought to engage with authoritarian states and China in particular in the post-COVID-19 world.
Thank you. Okay, we have time constraints. We will now have the final three speakers, and then I have to close the list. I'm very sorry. The first is Javier Nart, then Ms. Cicardi, and then Ms. Kanko, but you have to speak in English because the interpreters are no longer here. Javier. Buenos días. Nart. N-A-R. Nart. Wow. Javier, we see your ceiling. We see your hair. That's fine. The floor's yours. Javier, we're very sorry we can't hear you. Then we move on to the ID group. Signora Ceccardi? C-E-C-C. Ceccardi? No? So, the ID group, Ms. Ceccardi, we tried to contact you. Then the ECR group, Mr. Weimers, Charlie Weimers. Weimers, W-E-I. So he's also not available. Asita Kanko, ECR group. Kanko, K-A-N-K-O. She's also on my list. Asita. Please, the floor is yours, Asita.
Hi. Yes, thank you very much, Chair. High Representative, I hope you will agree as well, like all of us, that the organizations fighting disinformation must have credibility. Unfortunately, this is not the first time the EU versus Disinfo has made a mistake. It caused controversy in the Netherlands in 2017 when it wrongly included several Dutch articles in its disinformation database. So, High Representative, mistakes are made, but we do need to learn from them. This afternoon, I was very happy to read your press release, but I did not find in it the answers that I need and that many of our citizens are asking about. So would you instead answer the following questions, please? Has the EAS apologized to Politico for accusing them of spreading disinformation? What can the European External Action Service do to restore trust in the EU versus Disinfo portal? Do you think the Stratcom task force should remain in the EAS, or will it be better housed under Commissioner Jourova in DG Justice? Will you publish a full list of all representations received in EU embassies by Chinese operatives since the start of the corona crisis? What representations have you made to Beijing regarding its disinformation campaign? Will there be any consequences? Hasn't the past few months underlined that China is a systemic rival and that the EU should do more to solidify its cooperation with like-minded Asian countries such as Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan? And on that topic, what representations will the EU be making at the World Health Assembly next month? In particular, do you not agree that in the current circumstances, Taiwan should be allowed to participate in this year's assembly as it did before 2016?
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the High Representative has already been with us since 4 o'clock, and we know that he's under time pressure. So I will now finally give the floor to Josep Borrell to answer the third round, and then after that we will just have any other business and then conclude our meeting. Josep Borrell, please.
Well, thank you, President. I will need quite a long time to go on the questions, many and deep questions the honourable members has put to me. I will try to answer cross-board, putting some of them together. But let me first say to Herman, damage is done. We should not accept that the External Action Service comes out of this event damage, because it's weakened our capacity to fight against disinformation. And on doing that, we contribute on making the problem bigger. I cannot accept to put the blame on the External Action Service for what has happened. I cannot accept that the personal belief or feeling of a member of a staff leaking mails, maybe being written to be leaked, creates a damage to the credibility of this institution and to the work of the 30 staff members that are working there. Please be serious. Why do you believe this criticism without any kind of foundation? Why do you spread this criticism? Why a single leak of a single member of the staff presenting their own impressions? It's more important that the whole work of the people there and my personal political commitment. Don't weak the institutions that we have in order to fight disinformation. No, we cannot accept damage is done. Oh, well, what a pity. No. We should not accept that the External Action Service comes out of here weakened, because we need it. For sure we are not perfect, but if we want to fight disinformation, we have to trust the people who are engaged in that. Rangel says, we cannot accept pressures. We don't accept them. But we cannot prevent people putting pressures, because on the diplomatic life, they put pressures every day. We too put pressures, explaining our concerns and our worries and asking people not to do something that we don't like because we believe is damaging for us. The important thing is not the others putting pressures. It's not that. It's us not accepting them. And we haven't accepted them after making an inquiry and talking with the responsible and the people engaged on that. I can assure you that the document being public is not a watered down document from the previous one. And the China pressure, as you said, has not influenced on the drawing of this document, which is important enough. Please read it, and you will see honestly if it is an important tool to fight against disinformation without any kind of consideration of how the Chinese or the Russian or the Syrians or whatever can react on that. For sure we talk with other governments. As I said, we have a rapid alert system, and all internal documents that we produce are being shared with other member states, and by the way, also with the European Parliament. This document is being sent to the European Parliament from the beginning. And we share the information, and we comment, and we enrich mutually the way we understand the problem. And we could stop there. Why do we publish a document addressed to the general, ordinary citizens? To increase the awareness of the people about how important it is to fight against disinformation. There is no obligation of doing that. We could stop producing an internal report to share with the member states, with the intelligence service of the member states, and to take political decisions from that. If we do and step further and produce a document to be addressed to the general public, is because we believe that one of the most important ways of fighting disinformation is creating public awareness about it. And this is the richness of this document. That the Chinese are not happy. No, they were not happy at the beginning. They are still not happy now. But please don't say, the damage is done. We have to prevent this damage. We have to avoid this damage. And there are a lot of questions about where is this activity better placed. Well, this is something coming from the Council of the European Union. And the Council of the European Union has its own institutions. And the External Action Service receives tasks from the Council of the European Union. For sure, there is in the Commission another department related with disinformation from the internal point of view, but about geopolitics, about foreign policy, about defense and security policy, which is not competence of the Commission, but of the Council, it is where it is. It is where it has to be, like it or not. And by the way, I think they do a very good job. It can be improved. We can allocate them more resources. It's up to you, because you decide about the budget. It's not me who decides the amount of resources that are allocated to one service or the other. It's you. When the budget comes, put more resources. If you really believe on the necessity, do it. You are the legislators. You allocate resources through the budget. We have now 6 million euros and 38 staff members. We do a lot of work. We can do more. And I think we will have to do more, because this information will increase. When I said some weeks ago that we are engaged in a battle of narrative, it's going to be more and more important in order to address the geopolitical or the post-pandemic. But a battle of narrative is not necessarily disinformation. To be self-praising and to try to enhance the importance of the things you do, this is not disinformation. We do also. Disinformation is to use things which are not true. It's to cheat people. It's to make people believe things that they are not true. And some said, why don't you make reference to what Mr. Trump or Mr. Johnson is saying? Well, because we are not being tasked for that. The European Council tasked us to survey the disinformation coming from specific sources. And that's what we do. If the European Council tasks the European External Action Service to survey disinformation coming from other sources, we'll do. But by the time being, we have a specific mandate. And we try to fulfill this mandate as better as we can. And I want to finish this intervention ensuring you once again, this public document is not a reshape of the previous one. It's not a water down. It's not a simplification. It's not something done in order to please someone else. It's a completely different document addressed to the general public for a different purpose. And it has not been written under pressure. It has been complaints. Yes, there have been. Have been bowing to these complaints? No. And nobody can prove it. And please, why do you give more credibility to the personal opinion of a member of a staff that produced a text to be leaked and created damage to the institutions, to the work of the responsible of this organization, and the people working there? I think this is a very serious thing. I don't want to get over here saying, the damage has done, there is nothing to do about it. No, the damage should not be done, and it depends on you that this damage doesn't weaken the capacity of the External Action Service to continue doing their job.
Thank you. No further comments from your side. Then I would like to, first of all, thank all colleagues for participating in today's meeting. I'd like to thank you for an active and interesting debate. And especially I would like to thank the High Representative for his participation in our committee today. I think this is a commendable example of efficient and timely communication, and I'm optimistic that your cooperation with the European Parliament will and can continue in this spirit. So thank you, dear Josep, for being with us. Muchas gracias. I now come to item number 3, any other business. At least there's nothing on my list to mention. And the 4th item is an information about our next meeting. The next meeting of this committee will be on Thursday, the 7th of May, from 12 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we will have a debriefing by Commissioner Oliver Vahey on the EU Western Balkans Summit, which will take place on the 6th of May as a video conference. And we will also discuss the support of the European Union to the Western Balkans in tackling COVID-19. I now close this meeting and wish you all, wherever you are in Europe, a wonderful evening.